Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Cameron Kubos, and I am the Director of Athletic Bands here at the University of Houston. I oversee the marching band and all of our spirit groups, which encompasses the cheer team, the dance team, as well as the mascots. Joining me today are the Director of Bands, the head of our area, Mr. David Bertman, formerly the Director of Athletic Bands and Spirit Groups as well when I was an undergraduate student, and also our CBA for our entire area, Ornella Santi, joining us as well and helping put the presentation together. We are, as I said, representing the entire group, the marching band, the cheerleaders, the dance team, and the mascots, a large group encompassing students of many different majors from all kinds of different backgrounds. As we start, we're not just music majors. We are not just a part of the music school. We are a group that represents the entire area. And it's important to remember that and for us to reference that and make sure that people see us as more than just a music ensemble, a band, a portion of that area. As we start, I wanted to take a chance to say thank you to SFAC. For 21 years since Mr. Bertman has been here, the area has grown directly correlated to the support it has received from SFAC. That is true for all areas, band, cheer, dance, mascots. The growth that has been seen in the groups over that time, which was 80 members when Mr. Bertman took over in 2000, to 250 marching band alone at this point, not counting the cheer and dance numbers that we'll talk about here in a second. That growth has come directly because of the support that we've received from the committee, particularly throughout the last year and a half, 2 years, as we've all dealt with the craziness of what our world has gone through. We've been able to continue growing. We have not had to take a step backward, and I can say that without SFAC, that would not have happened. We are in a much different situation than other schools of comparable sizes. To us, we are in a much different situation, and our students and their experience has reflected that, and we're very grateful for that. The biggest thing, we came out, a lot of programs are struggling to get back into the swing of things, to make things work. We were granted last year the ability to go forward with one of our requests from 2 years ago, which was the purpose of new uniforms. We had new uniforms since 2012. They had gone through a lot of football games, a lot of travel, a lot of involvement within the marching band area. And it was at a time where we really desperately needed them. The uniforms were not housed under myself and Mr. Bertman the entire time. And as we said when we presented, they weren't necessarily in great shape. We were able to purchase the brand new uniforms last year. They've been debuted this year. Their first game was at the U of H versus Texas Tech game at NRG. And it has made our students not only have a more updated look, we're also following the color guidelines of the university, some outdated accent colors that were on the old uniform, as well as outdated logos. All of that stuff has been fixed, and it's been a wonderful opportunity for our students to have that coming back. And we have properly fitted, properly taken care of uniforms that are great, they're wonderful, and they're a totally unique design. Going forward, we plan to take care of these as well as we possibly can. We've preached that a lot to students this year and made sure that they're aware of that, but they are very grateful for that, and we were thrilled to be able to come in with that coming out of the COVID year last year, even though we're still continuing that, an unusual year where we weren't even in marching uniforms. The purpose and program overview of our area. The purpose of the Spirit of Houston and the bands and all of our spirit groups are to be the best representatives of the University of Houston that we can possibly be. Our representation happens in so many ways. Obviously, athletics and our appearances there are what are kind of focused on and the most clearly seen, but we represent at so many different levels, and we have to have kind of a wide bag of things that we can take and represent. We have to be able to perform at halftime and at timeouts as well, but we also have to be community ambassadors, performers that can engage audiences in many different ways, and that is the purpose of our group. It is not just to do halftime and timeouts at athletic events. It is to be ambassadors to this university at all levels and to ingrain that into our students. When our students graduate, we don't want them to stop doing that either. We want engaged alums that come back and not only support our programs, but continue to be those kind of ambassadors and those kind of representatives for the University of Houston as alums, as they work out in the world, as they spread throughout the community of Houston and all over the country and the world. We want to instill those beliefs and what they do as a member of the Spirit of Houston in them, and for them to continue that on throughout their lives. Our organization total includes 710 students roughly this year. That includes the marching band, our concert band programs, which also overlap within that, cheer, dance, mascots, and the students that participate in the Cougar Brass basketball and volleyball pet bands. There are some students that do a mixture of all of those things. We've had students even be a mascot and a band member, but that total number is the total number of students. A common misconception is that we are primarily music majors within the marching band portion, and it's actually the opposite. We are about 2/3, at the least, we are 60-40 non-music majors versus music majors. Our music majors provide an obvious depth of talent and leadership within the ensemble, but we pretty much represent almost every undergrad major on campus every year. We have such a wide variety of students, and without those students, our business students are just as important to us as our music students are, and it's part of the family that we create, and also the experience our students get. They're not just hanging around with one type of student. They have every walk of life, every culture, every area of study that we could possibly imagine. We try and have that representative in the group, and that helps their experience grow and grow them as individuals as well. A major aspect for the Spirit of Houston, all of our groups, is recruiting, not just for our groups. You think recruiting and you think, oh, they're trying to get more band students and more cheer students. We are visible recruiters for the university every time we put those uniforms on, whether that's at football games and basketball games. Obviously, the television aspect of those is important, but we also work in all of our areas to find ways that we can go into the community, that we can be seen by high school students and by junior high students and get the University of Houston in their mind. We don't want them just thinking about, that's a cool marching band. We want them thinking about the University of Houston has a great marching band. They have great uniforms. They have a wonderful cheer team. The dance team helped us and clinic does. So when we view recruiting, yes, we are worried about our numbers, but that is kind of a subset of recruiting for the university as a whole. We take that very seriously as a huge purpose for our group, and why we think that it's appropriate for us sometimes to ask for some of the funding and support from multiple different areas, because we do view what we do as more than just going out and performing at individualized areas. Traditional recruiting for us includes several things, some of which went away with COVID, all of which are coming back throughout the upcoming year, and some new things that we've added. For us, we host a Cougar Band Camp, 350 high school and middle school students on campus. Did not happen the last 2 years due to COVID. It will return this summer. Cheer and dance clinics happen throughout the year. They are geared towards both audition clinics for making the team for juniors and seniors, and for clinics in both semesters, also geared towards younger students who are not necessarily ready to audition for college cheer dance, but they're building skills and offering those at little to no cost in the community. The Band Invitational is an on-campus performance event at the Morris School of Music that brings in roughly 60 high school and middle school groups, about 3,000 students to perform in our Opera House every year. That will also return in the spring of 21. And one of the new things that we added this spring, this was our first real event back, was an all-state day. It was an all-state music clinic on the music that is used by the governing organization in Texas who auditioned for the All-State Band, and we provided it with our faculty from the Moore School of Music for free cost. The students that attended were just invited to attend. They did not have to pay for anything to attend the clinic. The only thing that was charged was if they chose to come to the game against Grambling State that night for football. We brought them in as guests of the marching band, and for $20, we provided them a ticket as well as a meal and took care of them and gave them Spirit of Houston and U of H gear as they came into the game as well. So that was a major recruiting event that we've added in. Moving forward to next year, we will also be working to host a marching invitational with Houston Independent School District. This is a school district. Oftentimes when we go to marching contests and do things out in the community, these are suburban schools that are in the heavy competitive marching band. And a lot of times those schools within the inner city, the schools right around us, they fall outside of those groups and they're not at those contests. And it's ridiculous for us to be sitting right here in the heart of the city of Houston as we are and not be reaching out to those groups. This year, Mr. Bertman and myself judged the contest on site at Del Mar Stadium with Dr. Timothy Zachary from Prairie View A&M. We judged those groups and gave them feedback. Next year, we are hoping to host that event at TDECU Stadium, where every band in Houston ISD would be coming here and performing before they went on to UIL or other contests afterwards. Through all these events, communication is a huge thing for us. We keep databases of these students. We make sure that they're getting reminders of all of our concerts, events, future things. And so we're building a recruiting database that, once again, is geared towards students at all levels, hopefully looking at the University of Houston when that time comes. In regard to athletics, competition, nationally visible things, we have listings here of all the things that we do. We're very actively engaged in athletics, obviously. We've added more performances outside of just athletics, particularly for the marching band. We have done 3 years now at the BOA Houston Bands of America Houston Regional and Major Marching Contest with thousands of students seeing us. We've done that 2018, 19, and 2021. This year, we will be going to the UIL State Marching Contest for 5A schools, actually next Monday, and performing for every 5A band that has advanced to state, which which is currently about 40 schools that will all be there. They'll see us at that time. And the weekend after that, we're traveling to the Bands of America Super Regional in San Antonio, which is another event which different groups that will also be seen there. We have continued our traditional avenues of things like the MLK Day Parade, the Rodeo Parade, Houston Pride Parade, many different things, events that we can be on TV. We take advantage of all of these to help raise not only the brand of our organizations, but the University of Houston, and we'll continue that as we move forward. Within the community, we have a list of the work that we try and do with student life and campus events. While it's great to be outside in the community and do things outside of our campus, we also have to be diligent and make sure that we are supporting everything on campus that we possibly can. At times, the only issue we run into is sometimes we don't have enough mascots or band members to do everything. We'll have 5 or 6 events at one time, but we continue to strive to make sure that we split our groups up responsibly and to do as much as we can and offer as much support on campus and in the immediate community that we possibly can. Starting in the spring of 2020, obviously, COVID took a toll on all of us. Last year was a very different year. While we had in-person groups in all areas, we also had online groups, and all of our staff members worked to provide the best experience that we could. Within reason, there's only so much that you can provide in performance-based areas when there's no performances, when there aren't games that are visible, when things are getting canceled. But by all of our staff and students continuing as much as possible, both in person and online last year, we were able to pick back up in a place this year that really wasn't a drop off. I can say without a doubt that the talent level and the performance level of all of our groups is stronger this year than it was in 2019. And that's because of the work that was put in by our students and our staff last year to make that happen. And we're very lucky compared to many of our other colleagues around the state and country to have had students that put that work in and made sure that we were able to safely continue doing what we do. Within our area, we do talk about staffing every year just to make aware of any changes. Throughout the last 2 years, 2 positions were lost, an administrative position and an assistant band position directly within the band area. And we had an area position within music education, which was tied to band, that was also lost. Those duty and credit hours, especially last year, were spread out throughout multiple different positions. We were able this year to create the creation of a new hybrid position, kind of the first 2, taking on some of the administrative abilities as well as the assistant band director role. This is the assistant director of athletic bands, which was accepted this summer by Dr. Brandon Meeks, and he's a great part of our team that's helped us out. So as we've had some juggling around in some different areas of staffing, we have been able to solidify some of that and returned all of our other staff members, cheer, dance, mascots. We've had stability in those areas, which wasn't something that we could say for a while, particularly in the cheer area. And we've had that and we've continued that. And so that staff, as you can see within our questionnaire, has stayed predominantly the same, and we're very happy with that. As we move on, we will be asking for 2 one-time requests this year. One of them is a traditional request, and it's the same amount that we were asking for before the COVID year in 2019, 2020, going into that time period, and that is our travel request. The purpose of this request is to continue supporting travel of the Spirit of Houston band, cheer, and dance groups as we go throughout the fall and spring of 2022 and 2023. The Spirit of Houston and U of H Bands Department request a one-time allocation of $125,000 to support the organization's travel needs for that fiscal year. In recent years, in 2019, before COVID hit, we sent band, cheer, and dance to every football game in some form or another. Full band, small groups, pet bands, and we continued that as much as we could. This year, due to travel issues obviously imposed by COVID, we haven't traveled as much. As far as the football games, we've made sure that we've taken care of travel. We've done it in areas that are a little bit easier for us to control, as far as not doing, plane travel and things like that. We appeared at both the Texas Tech and Rice game, which do require bus travel for us, and which is a costly endeavor. And so we're grateful for the support for that. But this also includes the State Marching Band and Bands of America contest trips to San Antonio, which, while not athletics, are major recruiting events. And we will also be taking a band and spirit group to the Oklahoma State U of H basketball game at a neutral site at Dickies Arena in Fort Worth in December of 21. These are trips that we were able, because they're bus travel, we had a little bit more control in them, dealing with the curveballs kind of thrown at you for COVID. So we've been able to utilize that same money going forward and operate in a way that allows us to take as much of an advantage. Going to next year, we're preparing ourselves, obviously, for a change into the Big 12 Conference and making sure that we're competitive with those groups and showing the same level of commitment to those groups as what we do. The projected travel for the fall of 22 would include 3 full band cheer dance mascots travel trips within Texas, UTSA and Texas Tech in the first 2 games, and an SMU conference game, which will for sure be in Dallas next year. We would do large pep band and spirit, try to do that to AAC games, meaning that we would go back to trying to have some representative of the groups at all football games for next year. We would also try and do a full performance at Bands of America, most likely the Houston Regional again next year. We would do an exhibition at the HISD Regional here, but we would not have to travel to that as it would be hosted as well. And then we're looking to do 2 more local performances, post-football games, marching contests, something in the area. But within that travel budget, we could do all of those things and be able to fully support that with all of our groups and maintain the visibility that we were creating in 2018, 19, and moving forward into our new change into the Big 12. Our second request is a one-time request for instruments. Instruments are something that obviously within marching band, there's kind of 2 areas of it. There are instruments that you have to provide for a marching band to function. Those instruments are things that students would not commonly purchase in high school because they're marching band specific. They're not instruments that go to concert band, jazz band, marching band, orchestra, all the above. That would include the marching drum line, tubas, the sousaphones, the big instruments that you see in the marching band, as well as marching French horns called mellophones and baritones. Those are instruments that are different than their concert band counterparts, and so students in high school, in junior high, they are not expected to purchase those instruments. We currently have those. The sousaphones were purchased 2 years ago. They are in great shape with the support of SFAC. We have a new drum line that was also purchased with that support. It will be coming in this year. And the mellophones and baritones are in good shape. We still have some time left on those. We are asking for another $100,000 and $25,000 to support a purchase of other instruments for the band area. This would be all woodwinds, flute, clarinet, and saxophones. The remaining trumpets, we have some school-owned trumpets, and remaining trombones. This is incredibly important for our group because we are at a point where we have 2 groups that we have to really think about. First of all, we have students that, while some students come to college owning their own instruments, many do not. They are in high schools that have instruments of varying degrees of standard, but they have instruments and that's what they use. When they come to the University of Houston, we do everything that we can to make sure that they have an instrument. But when we don't have those instruments, when we hit numbers, it becomes an issue of can they do marching band or not? In recent years, we've done everything from try and find personal instruments of other students and faculty and staff for them to borrow, to at times we've borrowed instruments from local high schools that they have not been using and rented them for the year, and we've taken care of maintenance. At the same time, for our music majors, many of our music majors, they come from homes where it is a struggle to get one instrument needed for them to be a music major. They can buy a trumpet. I myself was in that situation. I had a single parent who is a teacher, and she spent the little bit of money that she got for her college graduation as a non-traditional student to buy me an instrument in 8th grade that could get me through college, and it did. But when you're looking at that, I had to play it in all of my concert ensembles, the jazz orchestra, the marching band, all these things. The vast majority of our students probably fall somewhere more in that category. When they go outside with marching band, no matter how much you take care of those instruments, no matter how careful you are, you're taking an instrument outdoors. You're taking it into a football stadium. You're around large crowds that have no awareness of what the equipment is next to them. They're focused on getting whatever they're getting at the concession stands and getting back to their seats. The rain, we have no say in that. This weekend was a perfect example of that. We were going in and out of the rain, and those instruments, even the brass instruments, that kind of wear and tear can be incredibly damaging. When those students have their personal instruments that they're depending on to get them to college graduation, they have concerns about keeping those instruments in marching band, and it's a valid concern. If we were given an instrument request to purchase those instruments, we would be able to, with what we already have, within a year, purchase instruments for every student within the Spirit of Houston Marching Band. There would be no questions of, I don't know if I can participate because I don't have an instrument. If we're recruiting, it would not be a question of a student coming to us saying, I don't have an instrument. Can I? No. Just no question. You audition, you get into the group, you're taken care of. For those music majors, they would not have to worry about taking care of their instruments and being able to do that. Those instruments are not just a purchase of a 1 year. This is not a purchase that, in 1 or 2 years, we're going to be coming back asking for it. These are instruments that are going to be taken care of. We're going to provide maintenance out of our working budget. And hopefully, we're going to be looking at shelf life of 10 to 15 years of these instruments, but it will change what we can do and what we can offer to our students. Thank you once again for your support. We appreciate your consideration at all as we move throughout this. I will be glad to answer any and all questions. But once again, thank you for the support you've already given, and anything we can do to answer any questions or clear any confusion up, we would be more than happy to do that as we move forward. Thank you.
So I have a real quick question. So I looked over your one-time allocation request for FY23, and I just want to clarify number-wise. So in this, it says that we request a one-time allocation of 150,000.
Yes, and that was a mistake in the PowerPoint myself that I just caught when I was looking at that. I went with that and I was double thinking that I was actually going to clarify that here at the end if we got to that. It is 150. That is budgeted based on current estimates as well. We worked with Conn-Selmer, which is a large music organization that provides these instruments, and those are based on the current instrument average bulk discount prices that we would get and the numbers that we would need. It would hit right at 150, and that would allow us to provide everything. If it was a situation where something was brought back lower through that, we would have to pick and choose what we could do, but we could still do things within that. But we have the pricing and information. It's not just a random chosen number. It was built looking at what would it take to get us to that point and outfit us with comparable instruments to what we have and what we really need going forward. But the 150 is correct, and I apologize for that. That's my error on the PowerPoint.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I cleared that up. And then, so you said that the shelf life is about 10 to 15 years with scheduled maintenance. Can you kind of elaborate just on what that maintenance looks like, and then how it goes about kind of making sure that those instruments stay and meet the shelf life requirements that you're estimating?
There's two portions of that. Obviously, it is the training and working with our students to understand what they have a part of. It's no different than uniforms. When we hand those new uniforms to them, we are talking to them about the fact that they have to take care of these things. They are lucky to be at a school that provides those things, and so there is a personal responsibility of every student that touches them that comes along with that. Specific instruments have specific maintenance they need. Oiling of the valves, cleaning out this piece. They have to have reeds. They have to have this. So it's making sure that students have all the information and the understanding they need to take care of the instrument while it's in their possession. Every year as a band department, we take all the school-owned instruments that we have, both marching band and concert instruments. They are cleaned and taken to a shop and overlooked for repair. Depending on a year, Mr. Burtman knows these numbers as well. We do spend everywhere out of our regular budget between 10, 15, sometimes as much as 25 and 30,000 a year in repair. That doesn't mean the 25 and 30,000 are not because students dropped things and it was terrible. Some of the bigger instruments, tubas, sousaphones, every 2 to 3 years, they just need heavier repair because of that. But 10, 20, 30,000 a year in maintenance is still much cheaper than $110,000 to buy sousaphones or 150 for all these instruments. And as you take better care of them, those instruments can go and go and go. The tubas that we had before, I mean, we had tubas that were 20, 30, and 40 years old. That wasn't ideal, but you can find a middle ground there of being able to offer that if you're doing that maintenance and taking care of it. Mr. Burtman, did you want to add anything about that?
I was just going to say, like the tubas, for example, we got new tubas 2 years ago because of generosity here. But those tubas we had bought, when I first got here, the tubas were just fine and they were 20 years old and they lasted. And what we had, you can have like a tuba, have them redone. And so we had all the tubas redone and they lasted another up until a couple of years ago. So the durability of these marching instruments, one of the reasons to buy them is because of their durability. You know, you're getting everybody. What you're really trying to do is, and he was eloquent about the kids that didn't have instruments, almost to the point I get a little emotional, because we do have kids that come in with instruments, but they're really bad. And the kid that's coming in with a really bad instrument realizes it. And there's just no reason to have that kind of equity. And then just in the standard of what they're trying to do. And when I watch the kids right now, because I'm older and I've seen this, like what I'm seeing what I saw on Saturday, they stayed all day long. He even said, look, maybe we should just make this a pet band, those of you that if you've got other, and they didn't leave. So we're building, as you guys are, the examples of people dedicated to this university beyond the reasonable doubt, you know, call of duty, bigger causes than just themselves. And the durability of those instruments is you know, and is really important. The other thing to add is many schools are doing this now because of that very reason. And in the Big 12, that was, and in our conference, we have people now doing that. But in the Big 12, there are several schools.
That was going to be my question about peer institutions where they're doing. So this is a common thing.
This is common move towards it. There have been several other.
A lot of them have done it quite a few years back. like Oklahoma State, University of Oklahoma, have all done that.
And another thing, as you purchase these instruments, as you maintain them, new purchases moving forward would not necessarily ever be. I don't know if we were to get this request, you would never come again and buy all of them at one time. An example of another institution that would be a peer institution for like the Big 12 is Florida State. At Florida State, they've been doing this for upwards of 2 decades probably. They have since taken the initial set of instruments they've purchased, and those are what they call their practice instruments, and they have a full set, the newer instruments that they reserve for show days and performances. Now that is moving into a higher level of it, but it shows that you never really get rid of the instruments. Even if you retire some of them, you still find ways to use them. You still find other groups.
Well,
You grow the ensembles at that point. That's a different approach, but these instruments would not just go away. They wouldn't have a shelf life of, oh, their 5 years are up and we're not going to use them anymore.
Believe it or not, tell them what the uniforms are.
The uniforms, the old Spirit of Houston uniforms
Which
that we
are-
had that we've moved on.
Separately.
We worked with, at that time, David White in the HISD Fine Arts area and some of the other band directors. Those uniforms went to Fur High School in HISD, which is rebuilding their band program. They haven't had one for a long time. They're rebuilding. And those students were able to utilize those uniforms. And for them, for us, we're happy to have new ones, but there's a little bit smaller group. They were able to pick the best ones out, and they've worn those, and they've been tagging and showing the Spirit of Houston, all their social media and stuff everywhere. And so with the instruments as well, everything that we do, our old drumline at some point will be recycled in that way, because the drum lines, you really don't need 2 sets. We are conscious as well of making sure that something's not just sitting in the band hall and not being used if it could serve a purpose somewhere else. And we go through all the proper channels of making sure that we check that off through all university channels. But when we can do that, we either use it and make sure that's elevating our group, or we find a purpose for it within the community around us.
I have one more question, but I wanted to give you a chance if you have any questions. Okay. So I just want to, if we do approve this request, then as you were saying, there's maintenance costs associated with maintaining these instruments. And obviously, if you have a new set of instruments coming in, that maintenance cost is going to go up. So are y'all committed long-term at funding the maintenance costs, the upgraded maintenance costs out of your own budget versus?
Yes, and quite honestly, because our students, they have to be able to function in the marching band, we already fund a decent amount of maintenance for even student personal instruments from time to time. Because if a student has a personal instrument and they cannot afford something, we have to have them for the football games. We have to have them for the basketball games. So that money's already kind of built in there. And honestly, the new instruments, just like the tubas, we're spending less money on maintenance for the new tubas because they're in great shape. And so we're really looking at like a chemical cleaning at the end of the year, which is minimal. You're not looking at a lot of the actual maintenance itself. That'll be a little bit delayed down the line. And so while you'll have it and you have to plan for it, it kind of evens itself out over time. You get the purchase done, it cuts back for a while, and then as they age, you've already had them and you've built other things in there. But that is part of our budget, and that is part of our planning, and we make sure we go through that and are ready to take that on.
Touched on your proposal a little bit about leadership development. Can you spend a little bit more time talking about with the different teams, how you all focus on leadership development for students?
Within our organizations, a big focus for the last couple of years has been to solidify leadership within all of our groups. What we found, I worked as the assistant before I became the director of the group. I was working primarily with the marching band, but I've been with our spirit staffs, particularly Crystal Harbor, who is now our spirit coordinator, oversees cheer, dance, mascots. She oversees all those groups. What we saw was that we had great students. They had leadership skills, but it was not unified throughout all of our groups. It was not having a focus. It was not having a distinction of what their responsibilities were. And we looked at ourselves and went, okay, as her and I kind of came into our positions together, how do we unify these groups in a way that A, strengthens our organizations, but B, also gives them a set of leadership skills that are more finite and more determinate for what they can take into careers outside of just being a cheerleader or a band member going forward. So the big thing that we've done is actually try to clarify what their positions are. Just like any business, just like any organization, clearly defining roles of what they are. We've created some more leadership positions, not necessarily more bodies, but actual roles. It used to just be you're a section leader, you're a dance captain, you're a cheer captain, you're a mascot captain. We've given them specific roles and areas within that, ranging from everything from more operational positions, working with librarians. Some of the instrument repair is actually student driven. Social media on all accounts of the teams, and the vast majority of our marketing and the things that we put out to the public are student driven. We've split those things up to where they are more area specific to interests the students might have, but it also gives them greater focus. It gives us the chance to define what the organization needs and the students a chance to grow. As we've gone through that, as they've gotten these positions, we have morphed into a position where it's not just Coach Harbor doing the spirit groups and myself doing the band. We involve Coach Harbor in the band training and leadership. She's a veteran educator in Alden ISD that has taught for years and is administrator now, in addition to working here as a spirit coordinator. And for myself, I've been in band and leadership in those areas as well. And so we're taking those skills and finding things that apply across both groups, because sometimes it's just kind of like, well, what does a band section leader and a cheer captain have in common? Well, actually quite a bit. It's strong leadership skills, it's communication skills with the group, it's organization, it's development, it's planning, it's all those things. And so the big thing that we've done is to try and develop that more clearly on our part as faculty and staff so that they have clear-cut places that they can fit inside of. And then we work individually to strengthen them and see where maybe their weaknesses are and what they feel uncomfortable with so that they have something to take outside of the group beyond just, I learned this music in marching band, or I can do this back tuck. We want them to have skills that go beyond and reach into whatever career they have moving on out of the organization.
We might add too that for the cheer, the dance mascots in particular, we have engaged considerable amount of budget into, they need uniforms, costuming more every year. And so it comes out of other areas. This was the second year that Cameron has and Ornella have worked to defray the costs of, every kid enrolls, and then they pay their student service fees. But for cheer and dance at other schools, the costs they'll pay another, what, 500, 600?
And
we don't do that.
It ties into leadership in camps as well, because they're expected to pay for like cheer camps and leadership camps and things on their own. We don't ask the students to do that, but we do cover that for those groups. So they attend outside camps as well. It's not just our faculty and staff working with them. They attend NCA camps and things such as that, and we cover that within the organizational cost in our budget.
Sometimes, I was just, the SFAC money only goes so far with the big projects, and that's where, which is incredible. And that's where then we sometimes in other budget areas pick up. But where SFAC has been crucial with the cheer and dance and mascot is in our staffing, because really the quality people, you have to pay a little, and you really want, sometimes you really want UH Cougars to be in these spirit areas if you can get people like that. And we're so fortunate.
And I know we're probably running out of time, but I would like to highlight this is the first time that we actually have a full-time, not full-time, but we have a dedicated staffing position for every spirit group. Crystal Harbor is the spirit coordinator. She has been in that position and done the dance team. Cassidy Burkle was cheer, Amanda Carlos, and for this year we have finally solidified the mascot position, which is a professional mascot in the community, Megan Brown, who works with the Astros minor league team, the Skeeters, and she works to develop those students in all of our spirit groups in some conjunction with the professional teams as well in town. So we're very grateful because that support from SFAC has allowed that to happen, and we haven't had that in our time. This has been something we've been building towards, and it's better for our students that every area has someone dedicated to their skill set.
Hey, it's great.
Thank you very much.
In person and do this again live. Some of us have been doing this for years and years and years, and it seems just, every year it's a new group of leaders, and and I expect to see them down the road as alums too, which is so awesome, and it's great to see you in person.
No, this is my first time seeing it.
I thought it was the first in person, so